Hello and welcome everybody to Game 2 of NaNiwa versus Zenio from IEM Kiev. This is a quarterfinals match, meaning that this is going to be a best of 5, and NaNiwa is currently up 1-0 against LiquidZenio. In Game 1, we saw LiquidZenio go for a very quick Roach Bust versus NaNiwa's Forge Fast Expand, but Zenio wasn't able to quite take NaNiwa down. He did destroy the Nexus once, but NaNiwa, just holding it like a boss, got up tons of gateways, held it with Stalkers, and with some beautiful sentry force fields, was able to hold off Zenio's push, finish that up, and that was the end of Game 1. So here in Game 2, on Shakuras Plateau, spawning in the top left position, playing from Team Liquid as the Red Zerg, we have Zenio. Our winner of Game 1, spawning in the bottom right position of Shakuras Plateau as the Blue Protoss, playing from Team Quantic, we have NaNiwa. Looks like NaNiwa is just going to be going for that standard opening once again, getting up that pylon, most likely going to be seeing that Forge Fast Expand, much safer map to do that on this map. Really hard to Roach Bust a Forge Fast Expand here, just because a Forge, a Gateway, and a Cybernetics Core can wall this off completely with a couple of cannons behind it. Really difficult to break, because you're just defending one ramp, as opposed to on Dual Site, where we saw a huge area around the natural where they have to defend from, where Zenio was able to find those little sweet spots where his roaches could shoot his Nexus, but his cannons couldn't shoot the roaches. So it looks like Zenio most likely going to be forced to go for a more macro-oriented game this way, because doing a Roach Bust, like I said, just not going to be nearly as effective. He is opening up with that spawning pool, no gas at all yet being taken by Zenio. This is something that's becoming very common among most Protoss players, just because you want to expand on your own terms, and so often now Protoss players will drop down that pylon. It can be really annoying to save up those 300 resources and then just get pylon blocked. So now it's almost quicker to just throw down this spawning pool at 200 minerals and then just wait for that additional 300 and then throw that down right away, as opposed to getting 300 resources and then having to throw down your spawning pool when you could have just got it up 100 minerals ago. Now, 4 Zerglings are now on the way here for Zenio. With those, he's finally going to be able to get this probe out of there. NaNiwa trying to throw down that one pylon to block this for as long as he can, but no, it looks like now that the Lings are down, NaNiwa is going to be forced to retreat, and Zenio might even be able to get this probe here, I think. It looks like NaNiwa just going to try to be hiding it here, but Zenio is onto that probe, and he is scouting it quite well, or he is chasing it quite well. We do have a Forge at the front now for NaNiwa, as well as the Nexus. This time it looks like he did go for Forge first, though I could be wrong on that. I'm actually not sure on that. I actually can't tell by those timings. I'll need to go check that out. That's actually something that would be really important to know. I believe that was a Forge before Nexus, though. I could be mistaken. Correct me down in the comments if I am wrong. And if I am, then tell me the timing, because I'm actually curious. I'm actually really curious to know what that timing is. I'm actually going to go look that up right after this game, because I'm actually curious to know exactly what the timings are on those two buildings when you go Forge first versus going at Nexus before Forge. Gateway is now up, no Cybernetics Core yet up for NaNiwa, though it has just been thrown down. Looks like the natural expansion just about to get up and running for Zenio. He did mine gas just enough to get that Zergling speed, and then he just pulled guys right off of gas because he's going to be focusing on minerals, and I think he might even be going for a really fast third here. And I think this is a good play here from Zenio, considering how defensive NaNiwa is being right now. NaNiwa might send out some Zealots. It's possible to send out a small Zealot attack early on when they go for this kind of Forge Fast Expand build, but not too likely, I think, as NaNiwa hasn't thrown up any more gateways so far. Just one gateway, also has not chrono boosted at all on that gateway. Now going to be using his chrono boost to get out that faster warp gate research. Now, NaNiwa did get a probe into Zenio's third, so he does see that the third is now coming up for Zenio, and Zenio now going to be focusing mostly on drones. Wants to get lots and lots of drones up. This is going to tell NaNiwa that he is 100% absolutely safe, because Zenio is getting up that third. He is not going to be able to get up any kinds of fighting units at all. Going to be forced to get up lots and lots of drones, use all those larvae on drones if he wants to make this third base worth it. So NaNiwa going to be feeling very safe, and there we go. We do have the 2 Zealots now moving out across the map. Going to try to see if they can't do some damage here, but Zenio does see him coming with these Lings, and because of that, he's going to be able to produce enough Lings to be able to put a stop to these 2 Zealots, and as we can see, the Lings are already gathering up, and this is plenty to be able to take on these 2 Zealots. Now, keep in mind that these 2 Zealots weren't really meant to do any damage. They weren't really there to try to deny this expansion. Those 2 early Zealots are to do exactly this, to force Zerglings out of his opponent, and it looks like Zenio now just going to be poking up the ramp to try to see what he can scout. He does have an Overlord here in position to move in, and it looks like he might actually be thinking about moving it in fairly shortly. We have no lair tech yet being started here for Zenio. So far, just hatcheries all around, but we do see an evolution chamber now coming down here. Most likely going to be using that to get up a spore crawler or 2 at the front, just because he hasn't actually seen into his opponent's base right now and has no idea what his opponent could be doing. Could be Dark Templar for all he knows, so he wants to prepare for all eventualities. If we are to see Dark Templar, most likely not going to be Dark Templar because we would have seen them already by this point in time. Usually if there's a big Dark Templar rush, will have come by about the 7-minute and 30-second mark. Following a Forge Fast Expand, I do not actually believe that's actually true. I believe I'm actually mistaken in saying that. If it's a 1 base Dark Templar rush, I know that it can come by about the 7-minute mark, but given that he went for that Forge Fast Expand, I don't even think you can get him out by that quick, even if you really wanted to and took fast gas geysers. That's actually something that's actually really curious to me, because it's not something that you see done very often. Just because if you are going to go for a DT rush, it's going to be most effective when you take your opponent by surprise. The longer you wait, the more likely your opponent is to have detection. So if you go for a Forge Fast Expand, immediately rushing for DTs would be a much riskier move than just going for DTs on 1 base. I still would be curious to know that timing, though, to know when DTs would come if they did, for some reason, decide to go for a Dark Templar rush. Zenio is trying to poke in at the front very often. That's always a good move to do. This is something you want to do very much if you can help it. If in your own games you want to poke at the front all the time, because that is where your opponent's army will be. So that's almost the best way to get some good scouting information. We do see that he is getting an Overlord in position here. I would almost bet that we're going to be seeing that move in very shortly here to try to get a feel for what his opponent is doing in the base of NaNiwa. We do see that there are currently 6 warp gates up, and he is producing quite a bit out of them. Blink is now being researched. We do see that +2 ground weapons is on the way, +1 is already complete, and Zenio going to be moving forward here just in time to see NaNiwa moving out with a good force of Zealots, Sentries, and Stalkers. And actually I think it's only 1 Zealot, so I think that is going to be singular, that 1 Zealot. Looks like it's going to be mostly a Blink Stalker push here with Sentries for support. As we can see, Zenio has gotten very well established here on 3 bases. He is now sitting on Lair Tech. Macro Hatchery is up. Hydralisk Den is out, interestingly enough, and we do see a Spire is on the way, though I don't know exactly where it is at the moment, but can't be looking at that right now because NaNiwa is starting to get a little bit aggressive as he's moving in with a lot of Stalkers here. These are soon to be +2 attack Stalkers, and nice force fields going down, able to pick off quite a few Lings there for free. And I'm looking for that Spire. Oh, there's that Spire. Spire going down right next to that Hydralisk Den, which is now researching that Grooved Spines. We do see +1 melee attacks as well as +1 missile attacks soon to be coming here for Zenio. And Zenio's going for this very interesting Ling Hydralisk composition that I actually like quite a bit. This is something that we've been seeing from some players. They'll kind of rush these Hydralisks out rather quickly just because Hydralisks are really good against units. And one thing that you'll find is that Hydralisks at one point in time were extremely popular against Protoss, but once Protoss started to realize, well, Colossi really just destroy Hydralisks so quickly, some Zerg players are starting to discover, if I go for Hydralisks really early on before my opponent can get Colossi, then heck, I can do huge amounts of damage to their gateway compositions, and then just later on I can just tech to Corruptors, and hopefully if I can deal enough damage I can force lots and lots of gateway units and kind of delay the Colossus, because if he's forcing units out of an opponent, he will actually be delaying Colossi. That's obviously not the case here, as NaNiwa is actually just the one being aggressive here in this situation, but holy cow, these Lings are just swarming these units, and NaNiwa is pretty much completely out of force fields right now, so he has nothing to do but blink back and try to retreat. He does have a 3rd that is going up right now, but the Hydralisk count for Zenio is getting rather high, as we see lots and lots more Lings now being rallied in. as it looks like he's currently happy with this number of Hydralisks. It looks like he's going to try to cut off these Stalkers. These Stalkers are now 2-0 in upgrades to the 0-0 of these Hydralisks and the 1-0 of these Zerglings, but holy cow, look at the damage being dealt to all these Stalkers. These Zerglings just deal damage so fast to these units, and with the Hydralisks behind them, dealing tons and tons more damage while these Lings absorb so much damage, that is going to be so very strong, and NaNiwa is now going to be forced to cancel this third base, and Zenio's got to be feeling pretty good about that because he has been well established on 3 bases here for quite a while. Looks like he's even going to be moving to take a 4th very soon while he plants his entire army outside of his opponent's base. We do see that NaNiwa is reacting to this with the robotics bay. We do see the robotics facility up now, chrono boosting out those colossi, but he has just got to be feeling pretty crappy right now as he is down with only 2 bases right now, and the Overseer gets into the base, scouts the robotics facility, scouts the robotics bay, and he knows that he is going to need some corruptors here very soon, but never fear, the Spire was already completed with +1 flyer attacks already on the way, and we do see 7 corruptors now coming out onto the field, now adding roaches to the mix as well, so this is actually turning into quite an interesting mix here from Zenio, because now these Zerglings are almost going to be dealing quite a bit of damage on their own. Roach is going to be almost like a second layer of defense for the Hydralisks. He's just using the remaining Zerglings that he has because he wants to be teching to more expensive units that are a little bit beefier in a fight. Doesn't want those quite disposable units like Zerglings, and now just reinforcing with lots and lots of corruptors on the field for the NaNiwa. He is actually trying to immediately go for a 4th, and that's actually a really, really ballsy move considering that there were so many roaches, lings, and hydras right outside of his base. We do see 1 Colossus is already up here. We do have a second one now out on the field here for NaNiwa, but he needs to be really, really careful with these Blink Stalkers because the forces of Zenio are moving in very quickly, and these Hydralisks are going to be dealing damage so quickly. We see these Corruptors using their corruption ability all over these Colossi. Those Colossi are falling so fast. These Hydralisks are just left to do so much damage. Look at those roaches soaking up so much of the damage from these Hydralisks. More and more roaches now coming in, reinforcing with these roaches. We do see the GG coming down from NaNiwa. We did see that Zenio was following this up with a 5th base, as well as somewhere around here we've got an infestation pit researching pathogen glands. So he was fully on the warpath, producing lots of units, getting more bases, getting more tech. Really, really, really strong play there by LiquidZenio. That means that, of course, Zenio has now tied it up here in Game 2, and they are 1-1 now going into Game 3 of this series. So stick with me, guys. Game 3 of 5 of Zenio versus NaNiwa coming up in just a moment.